Leaked memo reveals plan to put tech platforms under Democrat control. A leaked memo circulating among Senate Democrats reveals a totalitarian plot by the Democrat Party to place tech platforms and the Internet under their complete control. Democrats want to make the Internet a much more authoritarian place by banning conservatives, alternative media outlets, and anybody who doesn't toe the party line. Titled Potential Policy Proposals for Regulation of Social Media and Technology Firms, the draft policy paper, penned by Senator Mark Warner and leaked by an anonymous source to Axios, details how the Democrat Party, with help from Silicon Valley, can regulate the Internet according to their own set of arbitrary standards. Reason.com reports, the paper starts out by noting that Russians have long spread disinformation, including when the Soviets tried to spread fake news denigrating Martin Luther King. Here he fails to mention that the Americans in charge at the time did the same. But now it's different, because technology. Today's tools seem almost built for Russian disinformation techniques, Warner opines. And the ones to come, he assures us, will be even worse. Here's how Warner is suggesting we deal. Mandatory location verification. The paper suggests forcing social media platforms to authenticate and disclose the geographic origin of all user accounts or posts. Mandatory identity verification. The paper suggests forcing social media and tech platforms to authenticate user identities and only allow authentic accounts. Inauthentic accounts not only pose threats to our democratic process but undermine the integrity of digital markets, with failure to appropriately address inauthentic account activity punishable as a violation of both SEC disclosure rules and/or Section 5 of the Federal Trade Commission Act. Bot labeling. Warner's paper suggests forcing companies to somehow label bots or be penalized. No word from Warner on how this is remotely feasible. Define popular tech as essential facilities. These would be subject to all sorts of heightened rules and controls, says the paper, offering Google Maps as an example of the kinds of apps or platforms that might count. The law would not mandate that a dominant provider offer the service for free, writes Warner. Rather, it would be required to offer it on reasonable and non-discriminatory terms provided by the government. Other proposals include more disclosure requirements for online political speech, more spending to counter supposed cybersecurity threats, more funding for the Federal Trade Commission, a requirement that companies' algorithms can be audited by the feds, and this data shared with universities and others, and a requirement of interoperability between dominant platforms. The paper also suggests making it a rule that tech platforms above a certain size must turn over internal data and processes to independent public interest researchers so they can identify potential public health, addiction effects, anti-competitive behavior, radicalization, scams, user-propagated misinformation, and harassment, data that could be used to inform actions by regulators or Congress. And, of course, these include further revisions to Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, recently amended by Congress to exclude protections for prostitution-related content. A revision to Section 230 could provide the ability for users to demand takedowns of certain sorts of content and hold platforms liable if they don't abide, it says, while admitting that attempting to distinguish between true disinformation and legitimate satire could prove difficult. The proposals in the paper are wide-ranging and in some cases even politically impossible, and raise almost as many questions as they try to answer, suggested Matthew Ingram,